And for more update and analysis of developments on the capture, trial, and of former Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, our special correspondent James Blue joins us now. Thank you for joining us again, James Blue. Now, looking at the comment made by President Trump saying that the Washington will assume control of Venezuela until what he called a safe, proper, and judicious transition is achieved, and also putting that side by side, the consistent and persistent statement by Delcy Rodriguez, the vice president, who is saying and recognizing Maduro as the president and the only president of Venezuela. How does this complicate the Trump administration's plan?
Well, we don't really know. And the Trump administration has so far said that they believe that she is willing to work with them. And so if that's the case, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. We know that Secretary of State Marco Rubio has spoken to her, that he's probably speaking to her directly in Spanish, and that there is some sense that they have some confidence that this is going to move forward. Now, it could be that, the vice president knows what she has to say in order to maintain her credibility with the Maduro government and with the regime. But it also, could be that she plans to resist. We just don't know. I think it's too early. One of the good signs, there aren't indicators that the Venezuelan military and police force are in any way challenging this change of rule. There does seem to be a lining up of people trying to sort of figure out their place. And so absence of violence, absence of resistance, we really sort of have to take her actions over her words as the way to judge her. And so far, it doesn't seem that she's done anything that would challenge what it is the United States is trying to do. Yes, she's said things like Maduro is still our president. She's only the interim president. But so far, she hasn't taken any action beyond that.
Well, Maduro is set to appear in the U.S. court, and one would wonder what charges he would be facing, apart from narco-terrorism, of course, and also how strong is the case against him? Can he claim immunity as the president of the country?
Well, he can't claim immunity as the president of Venezuela because this trial is actually in a U.S. court, and Venezuelans are, just regular people in front of the court. Good question. In terms of the charges against him, I believe there's a conspiracy to move cocaine into the United States, and there are previous charges from 2020, and the indictment was updated just last week. It also includes his wife. And so these are all crimes related to their exportation of drugs from Venezuela to the United States. And I do think that you're going to see the legal process really sort of speed up, because so far, what has happened is it's just been a military operation, and it's very difficult to sustain that sort of in the court of public opinion. So my suspicion is that the Trump administration is going to move very, very swiftly to kind of move this into court. And by moving it into court, it takes it away from cameras. The U.S. federal courts are not camera friendly. You can't have cameras in there. And then they'll be able to sort of do things not secretly, but without the glare of cameras. Yes, there will be reporters in the courtroom. Yes, Maduro will have an attorney to defend him, and his wife, likely two separate attorneys. But this is proceeding in a legal way, as all legal matters do. The difference is that this happens to be the head of state of a sovereign country.
There have been mentions about the possibility of another attack. Does this mean, or does this imply that the military is still actively positioned in Venezuela? That's the U.S. military.
Yeah, I got your question. The U.S. military is not actively positioned in Venezuela, but as you know, for the last 6 weeks, they have created the largest armada of U.S. forces in the Caribbean region ever. And so they're just off the coast of Venezuela. And so I think the option is, if things were to expand and were to call for the expertise of the U.S. military, they're right on hand and they could go in at any moment's notice to actually do the work that the president deems them needing to do. You know, they spent several weeks and months training for this extraction, and it went down perfectly, largely because of all the training and anticipation that they did to make it so. So I think if there is resistance, if there is violence, if there is anything that moves Venezuela from stability to potential chaos, I think you will see the U.S. military step in and do something at that point.
Now, looking at the coming weeks, how strategic or how influential do you think Washington is, especially in Venezuela? We saw some celebrations after the capture of Maduro. Do you think that signifies or indicates some length or shows some sign of influence that Washington has in those communities where the celebrations held?
Well, look, I think the Venezuelans who are in the United States are mostly economic refugees who've left the country because it was so impoverished and the economy was so down. They're included in that number. There are political refugees, and I think both of those groups are very excited and happy that things are changing. What we don't know and we can't predict is how regular Venezuelans in the country are going to respond. I think everyone wants something different, especially those who are not involved in the actual government. And I think there's probably some disappointment that Maria Machado, who's the Nobel Prize winner, has not been asked to sort of join some type of coalition government. But that may be jumping ahead of things. But the most important thing to understand and to really highlight, at no point has President Trump articulated an idea of democracy, an idea of freedom of expression, an idea of sort of being able to direct their own political will. And so it'll be very interesting to see what happens when there is some conflict between what the United States wants and what the sort of interim group in Venezuela want. And at that point, it'll be very interesting to see whether the U.S. just decides to sort of barrel through use of force, use of soldiers, use of the military to get what it wants.
So looking at, the Trump administration balancing domestic communication and political messaging with the complex realities on the ground, how do you think that's achievable?
How do I think what? I'm sorry, I just had a problem with my ear.
The balancing of domestic communication, especially within the administration, and the political atmosphere. How do you think the Trump administration can balance that?
Well, look, I mean, he came out and gave a press conference. He's been going on TV shows. He did an interview with the New York Times. I think the Trump administration recognizes that they have to communicate a lot, and I think you'll start seeing them in many places. We have the Sunday shows today. I think some of the cabinet ministers are going to go on the Sunday shows and really talk through what it is they're trying to do with this effort in Venezuela. I think the American public really would like to know exactly sort of how this might end. When you hear that the United States is going to own a country, and we've already been dealing with inflation, medical premiums are about to go up this month. People are slightly worried that this additional burden is going to make it harder on them. But so far, I think people are very grateful that no American lives have been lost, that they've been able to go in and show their dominance on the battlefield. And we'll just have to see what, if any, political dividends this plays for Secretary Donald Trump.
And finally, could concerns...
Sorry about that. President Donald Trump. Sorry about that.
Understood. Could concerns about being sent back to Venezuela affect support for the administration among these diaspora in the coming months?
I don't know if there is concern. So one of the things that recently happened some of the Venezuelans who were here, they had the permission to be here revoked or actually expired and it wasn't renewed. And so there was some sense that a number of Venezuelans were going to have to start going back. Now that the U.S. is in control in Venezuela, you could argue that the political instability that existed is no longer. There's a new political instability that's, yes, it's related to Maduro, but it's not the ways and why some of the people who are here on asylum visas were able to get those visas. So it's possible that those people are going to have to go back. I also think Venezuela is going to want to call its sons and daughters home to sort of help in this most important, almost existential crisis that's on its hands. And so perhaps they'll decide they want to go and the U.S. will support that as well. But in general, I do think it is a false belief that the immigration from Venezuela really feel the need for this invasion.
Thank you so much for the attention you've paid to this matter so far, James Blue, Arise Special Correspondent.